This is Mr. RB. Today I'm going to be drawing a face, and I want to use realistic proportions. Proportions mean the size or amount of one thing compared to another. So I'm going to measure things, and instead of using a ruler or other measuring device, I'm going to use this face shape tracer. Notice it's almost oval, but it's really more of an egg shape. And I put the narrow side down at the bottom, the skinny chin down, and the wide forehead at the top. I'm tracing using a white pencil on a black paper because later I'll be going over the white lines that I'm keeping, the white lines I want people to see, with glue. When the glue dries, I'm going to color in using chalk pastel. The chalk will not like to stick to the dried glue, and because the glue dries clear, it will leave nice dark lines that will give an almost stained glass effect with the dark lines and the vibrant pastel colors. I've traced the face shape. Now I want to add an axis line down the middle and across the middle. So to get the vertical one, I'm just going to fold this in half. I want to make sure that it's actually vertical and not tilting a bit. I'm going to be using this vertical line as a reference point and to help me locate or place the features of the face. I can check if it's correctly placed in the middle. If it's in the middle, both sides will be equal, which means that I could put the half of a face tracer on the left, or I could flip it over onto the right. If yours seems off, or if you're measuring and it's off, best to check it early and adjust before you make a lot more marks and decisions based on the wrong initial placement. You can see that I have two lines and they're not quite agreeing, so I'm going to check. Maybe my tracer is not folded in perfectly equal halves, or maybe I didn't place it right. So I'm just going to check this again and see, is one better than the other, or should I just go right down the middle? And I'm going to say that I probably could go right down that middle. There you go. That should work for us. Now I want to get a line dividing the top half of the head from the bottom. So again, I'm going to use folding as a measurement. I know that I want it halfway between the top and the bottom, so I fold this in half. I draw a line across that straight horizontal edge, and I'm going to flip up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And down. I will say that as you draw, any line you make that is straight will eventually get erased. So you may want to draw lightly. Well, I'm ready to start adding features, and I'm going to start with the eyes. To place the eyes, I want to have them spaced so that I could fit 5 eyes going across the face. I'll only include 2, but I want there to be room for 5. That way I know the eyes are correctly placed and the right size. This is an eye tracer I've also cut out, and it's 1/5 as wide as the face tracer. So it should pretty much fit. I'm going to start by folding this in half to find the middle of my eye tracer. I made the points meet and I got the fold. Once I have the fold, I'm going to place that fold on my center line and the 2 points at either side of the eye on the horizontal line. I'm going to make a small mark on either side. The distance between our eyes is about equal to the distance across an eye. So if I know how wide an eye is, I know that it will be the same distance between the eyes. I'm going to trace this over here. Notice the point of the eye is on the line right at that dot. And the other point is on the line on the other side. I'm going to trace. And place my eye. If I move the eye over to the side, it should still just about equal the distance between the side of the eye and the side of the head. So we have 1, 2, and a half on one side, and then we'll do the same thing over here. Half an eye over. I'm going to trace that eye shape. Again, whatever size you're making the face, there will always be space for 5 eyes going across that middle line. And no matter how big or small the face is, the eyes will always be halfway between the top of the skull and the bottom of the chin. Don't get distracted by different hairstyles or the fact that by and large we don't really care about people's foreheads, so we don't notice them. And because we don't notice them or think about them, we tend to draw the eyes, the mouth, and what's in between larger to make up for that. We draw the things that are most important to us, we tend to draw them larger. So we're trying to counteract our expectations, and that's why we're using the measuring. So I've got my eyes placed. For a chalk and glue pastel drawing, I probably wouldn't add too many more details. I wouldn't even add the round circle of the iris. That's because at this scale, drawing with glue is a lot messier than drawing with a pencil. So I'm going to try to keep the shape simple, and I can add these details towards the end when I'm just working with chalk. That'll be way easier. So now I'm going to move on to the mouth and the nose. I'm going to put my face tracer back on the face. We folded it in half to place the eyes. To place the bottom of the nose, we're going to fold it again in half. So half of a half is a quarter. I'm going to make a line going across here, which we'll use for the nose and later on for the ears. How wide is my nose? Your nose is about as wide as the distance between your eyes, which is as wide as one of the eyes. So I'm just going to take this eye tracer, slide it down, and I'm just going to make a little indication of where the nose is. Again, because I'm using chalk and glue, and I'll be drawing with the glue, I need to keep my shapes kind of simple. Otherwise, the glue oozes together, and instead of having details, I just have puddles of glue, which the chalk will not want to stick to. So I have a place for the nose, and I have the eyes, or as much as I'm going to do of the eyes. I'm now ready to move on to the mouth. Well, the mouth is 2 eyes wide, so it'll be 1 eye on one side and 1 on the other. That's how wide it will be. But where does it go? Here, here, here. To find out, I'm going to start by placing that face tracer back on the face. We folded in half for the eyes. They're halfway down from the top. We folded in quarter for the nose, because that's the bottom of the nose is 3/4 down. And I'm going to fold it one more time in half to figure out about where the mouth is. I will say that as I've watched a lot of videos and read a lot of people's descriptions, there is more variation on where people place the middle of the mouth. But when we say middle, we mean right between the lips. So I'm drawing this line. But when I go to place the mouth, I may find that I need to place it just a little higher or a little lower to look right. Otherwise, sometimes the mouth starts to go right over and touch the edge of the jaw, and that wouldn't make sense generally. So I'm placing the mouth over here, and I'm just going to make a little dot on one side, and sliding it over, I'll make a little dot on the other side. And now I'm going to draw a smile shape down below. And above, I'm going to start by just making this little indent below the nose. It's sort of like a in between a smile, slight smile, and a U. Be very shallow for a U, but now I'm going to connect the edges over to the sides of the mouth. If you have another shape for a mouth that you're more comfortable with, that would undoubtedly work as well. I like this because it'll give me some space to color in. And I like having shapes, sort of like a coloring book, as opposed to just lines, which are a little trickier to do with, but we will. Now I want to add some ears. The ears will only be as wide at this scale as about as wide as my pencil is. And that's pretty surprising, but when you think about it, when we're looking straight on at someone's face, we only see a bit of the edge of the ear. We don't see that full side that we would see if we were standing off to the person's left or right. We just see that front edge. So they will be narrow. And they're going to line up just about with the middle of the eyes, where we have our line. They're going to go up from there, out, around, hugging close to the skull, down just past the nose line and back up. Some people have dangling earlobes, and so there's more dangle here. Some people have absolutely none at all, so you would just go right down into here. I will say that noses and ears are the only two parts of our body that continue to grow all our lives. So while a toddler or baby might have a tiny little nose and little ears, an older person might have larger ears and larger nose. And it's not just our imagination. That is part of how we change as we grow. So I have most of the face. I'd like to add the neck next. To place the neck, I'm going to go one size larger than the mouth, two sizes larger than the nose. The nose was one eye wide. The mouth is two eyes wide. And the neck will be three eyes wide. This corresponds to the outer edge of the eyes. Therefore, I could just take a straight edge, for instance, my folded shape here, and as long as I line it up vertically, that would be parallel with the edge of the paper, I could pull it across, line it up with the side of my eye, and make a straight line down. This will get erased. Well, certainly the part that goes through the face will. Oops, my pencil's getting a little worn down. Ooh, that one tilts a little bit, I think. I think it could have been a little straighter, a little more vertical. And now I'm going to be going over here and making a similar line. Which, I have to say, I think I got that one a little better. I'm going to now take these lines, and I want to keep the bottom and the top where they are. And for me, I'm going to say at this size, and this head is about 7.5 inches across, if that helps. So it's 7.5 inches across here, which is a little longer than my pencil that's been sharpened maybe once or twice. I'm going to say I need to get about 3, you might need 4 fingers in there. And I want to start at the top where it hits the jaw, and I want to end down here. But I don't want a straight line because human beings are made of many things, but not straight lines. So I want to add a slight curve to make my person feel a little more alive and organic. It's not a big difference. You can see straight line I started with which I won't need anymore, and then the curve that I want. Over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I start at the same top, and I end at the bottom, but I'm just going to curve in slightly. It's not even a crescent moon. It doesn't even have as much curve as that, but it does give a more lively feel to it. I can always erase some of the lines, and I will say the white pencil, easier to see, a little harder to erase, but I can erase some of those straight lines because I don't want them, and sometimes when I'm putting on the glue, I do get confused and I start putting glue on straight lines. Once you put the glue on, you just have to leave it and figure, hey, that's part of just how it is, and if it's not perfect or exactly what you were thinking, nevertheless, it's part of the unique quality of a handmade object. I'm going to add the line across the neck. And for that, because this is three-dimensional and our necks are curved, not flat like a box, I'm going to use sort of a curved smile shape. That will give my person more lifelike three-dimensional roundness. Then I want to get the shoulders. And when you think about shoulders, we tend to make them very narrow. Again, because we're not so interested in shoulders, we're more interested in things like eyes and nose and mouth, or hair. But shoulders are wider than we usually think. And I would say the ones you draw will probably be a minimum of twice as wide as the face, and maybe even as much as 2.5 times. So that means that if I was drawing the shoulders all the way in, they would go from way over here to way over here at a minimum. And that would be for a very slight person, probably a very slight, very young child. So I'm going to make these, and I'm going to have them curved down a little. And on this paper, what's going to really happen is they go off the edge, or they go off just a little to the bottom, because I don't have that much room. And that's okay, because I don't really want to get into drawing the body today. That would be another project, a great project, but today I want to focus more on the face. When it comes to hair, the first thing I'd like to do is get some eyebrows in, which is part of the hair. So I'm just going to note them. I won't color them with the glue, but I will color them with the chalk. I'm going to put my finger over here in a curve and just curve along over my eye about a finger width away. Now, eyebrows do come in different thicknesses, different shapes, but this will give me a good start. Notice that my eyebrows go from one side of the eye on the outside to even past the eye on the inside. Some people have eyebrows that meet, like Frida Kahlo did. She was so proud. She loved her eyebrows that met, and always made sure to make them very clear in her self-portraits. But different eyebrows are different, and that's one way you can indicate what somebody in particular looks like. It's also a great way of showing expression. But right now, I'm just going to place them so I can come back to them later with the chalk. I do want to add the hair, and you want to think about things like texture and length. If someone has bangs, they will tend to come across if they're on a slant, maybe they come across one eyebrow. And I'm just going to take a quick break to sharpen this pencil. I am back with a sharpened pencil. How nice. It's great when our tools and materials can do what we need and want them to do. So I left off, I just made a line going across to indicate some bangs. If your hair is parted, or the person's hair is parted, if it's parted in the middle, we already have our middle line still showing, it would go more like this. And then there's a question of texture. Hair can be smooth, wavy, curly, or coily. For a smooth hair, if it's parted in the middle, I would probably still still get a little V over the head to give some thickness to the hair. And this is hair that's going to stay close to the skull. Then I would draw it out like this, and for fairly short hair, it would come down like that. If I want wavy hair, I would go a little further out. I would add the sideburns coming down next to the ear. And you can see how as the hair goes from smooth to wavy and then to curly, it goes out further from the skull, and as it gets to coily, it can get even further out from the skull. I'm going to go with sort of a curly hair person today. If they have short hair, it'll still come down to about the ears. The sideburns will come down at least over part of the ears, and may well come down either to the middle or even the bottom. Somewhere in there. It depends on the person and how they wear their hair. If they have longer hair, it might come down right to their shoulders, and they could either wear it behind their shoulders or have it go in front. If it goes in front, it might cover the whole ear, so that we no longer see that. And it would also be more curly coming down across the face. I'm going to erase a few of these extra lines. I no longer need these ears because my person has long hair covering their ears. Losing a little bit of that eyebrow. And also, I don't need the skull line. I would only keep that if my person was pretty much shiny bald or maybe a really close buzz cut. At this point, I am ready to add the glue. I'm just going to use regular Elmer's white or clear glue. I've used both. This was a clear glue bottle. I refilled it with a white. And I'm going to hold the cap over here and twist the nose, in this case the orange nose. I want to make sure the top is clear. There's no dry glue over here today, well, that's nice. So I'm ready to go. I'm going to start as far away from me as I can reach. I start on the far side of the paper for myself because if I start on the near side, sometimes as I'm reaching around to the far side, my hand goes through the glue I already put down, and, well, that makes a problem. Notice that I'm also having the glue trail behind the cap. I did put the part in there. If you're wondering whether I am very worried about staying exactly on the line, particularly with the hair, I get a little bit of leeway. And that's it. I am ready to let this dry. I would put it on the drying rack, and it would take overnight at the very least to get fully dry. Next time, we add the color. Hi, Mr. RB back with part 2 of our chalk, pastel, and glue realistically proportioned face. We've already finished the proportions in pencil and traced them with glue. I then let the glue dry overnight, and I'm ready to start adding pastels. I'm using this box of 24, and every box or every set will have a slightly different combination of colors. but most of them could work. Well, all of them could work. I'm going to go for some fairly realistic skin tones and eye color and hair color. You could also at this point decide to go a different direction with color and use color more abstractly or arbitrarily with a whole different color effect. To start with, I'm going to start with the eyes, and I want to start with a color for the whites of the eyes. So I'm going to just start with white. I'm going to add a little color around the edges, leaving a circle of plain black paper in the middle. Notice the circle is relatively large, and you can see that the chalk really doesn't like to stick to that dry glue. Kind of ironic, what with the fact that wet glue is made to stick. The dried glue actually resists sticking. My circles don't look great, but that's okay because I'm going to come back in a few minutes in a moment to fix that up with another color. I'm going to add just a little bit of grayer over in the corner. And I'm going to use just a finger and see how I'm just sort of adding a little smudge. Right now that makes the whites of the eyes a little duller than I would really want, but I can come back later and add some fresh white to add sparkle. I now want to pick a color for the eyes. I'm going to go with I think I'll go with a light to medium brown. So I'm going to start with just filling that circle in. I am getting my fingertip a little messy, but I will clean it up with a little soap and water when I'm done. It is important that I not touch things like my nice white sweatshirt that I just got, because the pastel will go from my finger to whatever I touch. And while I generally find that, particularly with pre-treating, pastels usually come out, every now and then there's a color that just seems to resist coming out of something. I want to add a little bit more of a darker brown because these seem a little lighter than I want. So I'm using a second brown and just adding a little extra color. I just want to deepen the value. I want to make the value darker. Value meaning light to dark. And I now want to add the black for the pupil of the eye. Unfortunately, my set that I'm using today doesn't have a true black. So I'm going to start with just a dark, dark gray. Adding the pupil adds a lot of expression and feeling. Somehow we just connect with it and feel it's more human. And since the eyes tend to be the first place we look, that really helps. I'm getting a bit of chalk dust, and I don't want to blow it around the room. If I blow on it, it could go onto somebody else or could get where I don't want it. And while these are non-toxic, I don't really want to be breathing them in either. I'm going to leave the eyes as they are for now. Later I'll come in and add a little extra white for a gleam or shiny gleam. But next I'm going to go to the skin color. For skin, I can do anything depending on how light to medium to dark. I could use some peachy tones. I could use more of this sort of light brown. I could go with very dark brown. And I can go with any combination thereof, as well as adding other things to add a little bit of detail. I'm going to stick to sort of a, what should I do today? I think I'm going to go with a medium tone, and I'm going to keep this chalk out, and we'll probably come back to some of the others for certain areas. To get this going, I'm going to put some chalk right on the mouth, under the nose, on the chin, and on the neck. Don't forget to do your neck. And if your ears show, also do the ears. I have a base coat of tone, almost like when people are putting on makeup they might use a foundation, and this will give me a good start. I want to add a little bit more color to the lips, And you may have noticed that I used skin tone on the lips. I like to think of the lips as the part of the skin that's just tends to be a little redder or pinker, sometimes a little darker, brownish, but it's going to be very influenced by the color of the skin. If you use, or I find that if I use just say red, thinking that lips are red, it tends to look very much like my person is using very bold lipstick, which sometimes is what you want, but right now it really isn't. I'm going to put a little extra light, back to that lighter skin tone, on the lower lip. Notice that I'm giving it a little curve. I don't want to over-touch the pastels. Pastels can get overworked looking, and I don't want that. I'm going to put a little of that darker brown on the upper lip. The reason for this is lips sort of stick out a little bit from the plane of the face, and so the lower lip tends to point up and catch light that's coming from above, whereas the lower lip tends to be more shadowed. So I'm letting the upper lip look a little darker and the lower lip look a little lighter. I'm going to just add a little, I'm using just the edge. You know, I think of the chalk as having sides. Between the sides there's an edge. And at either end there are points. Mostly I've been using the side. I'm going to switch to the edge now just to get that little extra shadow. I'm going to go up just a little. Later I can also put in a bit of light on the lips to give them a sense of moisture and gleam. Wet things tend to be shinier, so eyes, lips tend to be a little shinier. I want to add a little more tone to create a feeling of shadow. So to do that, I'm actually going to pick a light color and a darker color. I started with this medium tone. For the lighter tone, I could pick a number of things. I want something that's not too saturated with color. In other words, I want something that's a little more neutral. If I pick a bright thing like yellow, it tends to look like the person is either wearing stage makeup or that I've gone to abstract color. Again, I'm trying right now to stay a little closer to realistic color. I'm going to put a little bit on the cheeks to raise them up and figure that if the light's coming from above and from this side, that it'll come down, it'll strike here on the cheek. It won't get down into the eye socket as much, but it might get a little more on the forehead. And it would certainly catch where the chin sticks out a bit. And of course, the nose. I'm going to make a little, it's almost like a comma shape or a half moon, quarter moon shape right over here of slightly lighter tone. And I'm going to come up that side. Now you might think, but my person is looking very wide-eyed, and part of that is because I haven't put the eyelids in yet. Part of it is because I haven't even added eyebrows, much less eyelashes, so they tend to look like their eyes are unusually widely open. I'm getting a little lighter tone on the neck down there, and now I'm ready to come back with a darker tone. I started with my medium light brown, then I went to a tan color for the light. I'm going to go to a dark brown for the shadowy, most shadowy areas. And this would be under the nose. Notice I'm not really drawing nostrils because I'm looking straight at this person and their nose is at or below my eye level. Therefore, I won't see into the nostrils. I do want to get a little more darker shadow above the eye and under the eyebrow. And I'm going to very lightly, I have to do this very delicately, sort of model these shapes here. I want to start adding the hair. For the hair, I'm going to pick a color, and I'm thinking that I'm going to give this person a dark brown hair. So I'm going to use 3 tones. I want something that's about the tone I want their hair to seem. I'm going to use this dark brown again. I want something that's lighter that can give me a feeling of the highlights in their hair. And I'll probably stick with that lighter tone that we used initially for the face. And then something darker. So I have this dark gray. It sort of looks like a cool bluish gray, and that should be good for getting the deep tones. So I have a sense of what color the hair is, the highlights in the hair, and the deep tones in the shadow. As I do the hair, I want to make sure to include my eyebrows, otherwise my person will look like they're missing eyebrows, which is not my intent at the moment. So to start this, I'm just going to set the medium and the lighter aside, and I'm going to just put a base coat down I'm now ready to go in with some medium tones, and for the medium tones, I'm going to use the medium tones to help describe the texture of the hair. This hair was wavy, so I'm going to make sort of wavier lines or marks. I have the marks from the glue, those sort of curving swirl lines, so that's going to help add a little of the texture quality that I wanted. Notice I am not trying to hide all of the dark tone. I do not want to cover the whole thing. And while I rubbed the darker tone in completely for a smooth ground color, I'm not going to do that with this medium brown, or medium tone. This is actually a dark brown, which will be the middle tone in my drawing for the hair. Don't forget the eyebrows. I'm going to rub a little bit of this so that I get some of the dark and medium combined without completely blending the two together. And now I'm going to add some lighter tones. The light is coming from the upper right, I decided. So up in the upper right would be the lightest of the light area. A little on the eyebrows. When I step back from my piece, I noticed that, that this piece over here of dark looked like not so much dark hair, but more like a hollow area. So I want to add a little tone to bring that up. I'm going to add some of my darker brown and even some of that lighter medium brown now I'm going to pick a color for the shirt, and for that, I can pick whatever color I feel will be most exciting, wonderful, or interesting, unless, of course, it's a picture of someone in particular wearing a particular clothing, and then I might include it. I only have the very top of the shoulders and the neck showing, so even if I'm thinking that the person is wearing a shirt with some logo on it or something printed down below, we won't see that. I really just need pretty much a solid color. I'm going to go with a red today. I'm going to use the side of the chalk. And I'm going to make a nice round motion to get a good even coverage. Along the sides, I need to go and down. I do want to add a little dark tone over to the left-hand side, and then where the chin would come down, or would stick out, the chin sticks out, so shadow falls below. Obviously this hair comes down across part of the shirt, so I'm going to add some tone to the left of it. I decided arbitrarily that the light would come from above and over on the right, so therefore shadows would go down and to the left. Light above to the right, shadows down and to the left. Now I'm going to just gently rub with 1 or 2 fingers just to smooth that out. Again, pastels can get overworked, so I don't always want to rub everything equally and evenly, because after a while all of my pastel will start to look sort of dull, lifeless, and a bit dingy. If you're finding your colors are starting to look that way, it could be that you just blended together too much and it needs a little more fresh pastel added in. Now I want to pick a color for the background, and I'm going to pick a contrasting color, something I haven't used much in the face or the shirt. So I've been sticking to fairly warm and neutral colors, red, orange, tan, brown. I'm going to go with a bold sort of turquoisey blue. I think that'll look really nice. I could draw clouds and sun back there, but this isn't that big a picture, and I think I'm just going to go with a plain, contrasting, solid turquoisey blue. That pretty much finishes it up. I can step back, and that's always a useful thing to do, and just take a look to see if there's anything else that really wants addressing. Notice I want this a little lighter. I have to say, sometimes when I start trying to go up back and fix things, sometimes I make things worse. I lose that peak wonderfulness. I'm not sure if that's making it better. I can play around a little more, but honestly, sometimes done is done, and it's time to move on to new pictures and new projects and new learning. Practice and repetition increases the range of experience we have and the range of experience we can draw upon, and therefore we can make artwork that reflects that ever-increasing base of experience. I wish you well with your drawing. Enjoy, and we'll see you soon.